Benjamin Franklin quoted, "If you would know the value of money, go and try to borrow some." So, today we will be learning about the time value of money. I think the quote means that um, you can never really appreciate the value of money not until you earn it. Okay, so murag paningkamutan gid nimo siya because you know nga, of course, di ba, murag money is, we really need money para makasustain ta sa kanang mga panginahanglanon, mga necessity nato in our everyday lives. Um, ang majority sa engineering economy studies involve the commitment of capital for extended periods of time. So the effect of time must be considered. Like, kung mo invest ko ani on a certain project, hantod ganus aman ako mabawi ang akong capital nga invest. Something like that. So in this regard, it is recognized that $1 today is worth more than $1 one or more years from now because of the interest or profit it can earn. Okay, so mag-invest ka og piso karon, so sa future siguro kung na kay something investan mabalik kasi mo ma-dos na or ma-tres ana. And therefore money has a time value. I think maupod na nga kanang nagali ka ng mga I don't know the kanang term niya nga katong mga scam programs before or scam investment before nga ay nakalimot ko sa mga terms, but anyway, ang concept man gud adto is that mag-invest ka, murag diba, mag-shell out ka og money and then they will promise you na mabalik ra. But actually guys, ingana gyud ang kanang concept of investment, ingana gyud siya nga kanang if magdepende pa gyud kung unsa kadako ang imo na invest, ingana pud percent na mo gyud siya interest. Ang interest is based on the percent sa imong capital sa imong investment, sa value sa money amount na imong gi-invest. Okay, so well, therefore ang money has a time value. Kay dili man nimo siya i-invest karon then makuha pud nimo karon na mo doble na like today, this day, diba? Mo leap as days goes on, as month goes on, as years goes on. Magkadako ang interest niya because katupong gadawat ana nga money nga mao to siya ang katong implement for example sa project ana, he is the one responsible na mag-invest pud adto na asa i-invest ang money, like magkuan ba sila ka ng obuyan ana, so pag mo dako ng mga baboy then baligya na, so you will get your share ana nga kanang nga business. Okay, so it has been said that often the riskiest thing a person can do with money is nothing. Ang pinaka-risky daw na buhaton sa isa ka tao sa kwarta kay kanang wala gyud kay buhaton at all. Murag when I was a child, I used to kanang think nga gusto daghan ko kwarta ana. So but how can I gather or save a lot of money na wala mo putway ka ng kuan, wala ko i-earn, or na ko i-earn sa akong mga kuan adto, mga sideline, basta tako kog test papers for baligya sa mama ana. Anyway, I used to think na ang safest way to save money is not sa bank, not sa kuan, but kanang gusto na ko itago siya somewhere, like mag-dig up ko og kanang kuan sa yuta, then gusto na ko siya itago para dili yun na, di siya mahilabtan. Muna siyang pinaka-safe. Pero murag wala siya ni grow. Kaya ako man promise na kanang mga 2 years from now, magsige ko hulog aning ako kuan akong alkansya ana. But there's nothing wrong with that ha, nga saving of money. Pero kanang wala kay buhaton na ang term is gipatulog ra nimo ang money na wala kay sayang ang value ba. Okay? Kay ang money has value. And if money remains uninvested, wala nimo siya i-invest sa something na maka-gain ka or sa alkansiya lang, magstay siya for 5 years, ana, sayang. Ang value is lost. After 5 years, kung ang target nimo, kung in 1 year, naka 3K na ka, then nagsige hapon kag kanang gi-save lang gyud nimo siya kay 5 years nimo, in 5 years time, panin ako i-open kay mo ni akong target paliton, ana, diri ra gyud ni din ako hilabtan. Sayang, because kung 1 year, naka 3K ka, if you have invested that one, it could be na mo gain siya og profit, mo na siya kanang sayang kay kung ma-invest na nimo siya in a good investment. Basta madugangan siya, ma-times 2 siya, ma-times 3 siya, ana. Money changes in value not only because of interest rates. Dili lang sa interest rates na mag-change ang value sa money, but we also have what we call inflation. Or, the opposite of inflation is deflation. And currency exchange rates also cause money to change in value. So if you have noticed, natay ka ng mga lain-lain na conversion, currency value, maga-vary siya, maga-fluctuate siya. Isa po na sa factor nga nung ma-change ang value sa money. Okay? So, today, ato na siya i-discuss. Okay? Why consider return to capital? Okay? So, when you consider return to capital, there are fundamental reasons why return to capital in the form of interest and profit is an essential ingredient of engineering economy studies. So, number one, interest and profit pay the providers of capital for foregoing its use during the time ang capital gamito niya. Okay? So, the fact that ang supplier can realize a return on capital acts as an incentive to accumulate capital by savings, thus postponing immediate consumption in favor of creating wealth in the future. So, nakay mag-gain sa future. Ang second is interest and profit are payments for the risk the investor takes in permitting another person or an organization to use his or her capital. So, kana siya. In typical situations, investors must decide whether the expected return on their capital is sufficient to justify buying into a proposed project or venture. So, of course, if ako ang mag-invest, maghuna-una igid ko nga unsay mag-gain or unsay expected return sa imong sa akong capital na akong i-invest. Makuan ra ba kanang mabawi ra ba nako or more than mabawi ba? Kung more than mabawi, pila pod ana. So, if a capital is invested in a project, investors would expect as a minimum to receive a return at least equal to the amount that they have sacrificed by not using it in some other available opportunity of comparable risk. So, at least, ang kanamurag standard nila na, basihan nila na, okay, so, I just need na kanang mabalik siya rather than malugi, magali na i-term na kanang malugi or ma-scam, something like that. Because, ang capital nag-invest nimo was not being returned to you as an investor. Do you understand? Sorry. Wait. So let's define some of the terms that we will be using. Earlier, I mentioned incentive. Katong incentive to accumulate capital by savings. Incentive means a payment or concession to stimulate greater output or investment. So Say, kung buotan ka, taga na kang incentive, something like that. So, a risk, on the other hand, ang interest and profit are payments for the risk the investor takes in permitting another person to use ang iyang capital. So, ang risk, meaning it implies future uncertainty about deviation from expected earnings or expected outcomes. So, sometimes, if you are kanang an investor, magpili gid ka o kanang i-consider nimo ang risk. Like, for example, gusto ka mag-invest o unsa may risk na imo makita kung mag-invest ka into rice field, na siya, humayan, diba? Risk could be ting bagyo karon or flood, drought, ano ba? How about kung mag-invest ka o ka ng baboyan or pabuhi kang mga baboy so that you can sell it someday? What could be the risks that you need to consider? Probably, pag wala sila yung vitamins or what, mamayat sila, di mo sila mabaligya, or mamatay sila in the middle of the kanang time nga gibuhi nimo sila So there again in economics, there are a lot of risk nga i-consider nimo. Opportunity cost, if kailangan ang interest or profit available from an alternative investment is considered as the opportunity cost of using capital in the proposed undertaking. So let's just have a review on what opportunity cost is based sa katong previous lectures that we have discussed. This is incurred because of the use of limited resources, such that ang opportunity nga gamiton to na resources to monetary advantage in an alternative use is forgone. Okay, now, capital is like very common term. Okay, so whether borrowed capital or equity capital is involved, there is a cost for the capital employed in the sense that the project and venture must provide a sufficient return to be financially attractive to suppliers of money or property. Of course, diba? Ako, personally, I will not invest if dili mabalik akong kapital, at least kana. Diba? Not to mention, napakay risk consider, nakay something like that. So, again, a capital refers to wealth in the form of money or property that can be used to produce more wealth. Gamiton mo siya as capital para mudako pa siya, mulambo pa siya, something ana. So, in summary, whenever capital is required in engineering and other business projects and ventures, it is essential that the proper consideration be given to its cost, like ang time value, kana siya, the so, we will try to discuss the time value of money principles. So, kana siya are vitally important to the proper evaluation of engineering projects na inyong i-handle in the future, and mo na siya ang foundation of a firm's competitiveness. And hence, dili gid makasurvive ang isa ka firm or company if dili na nimo i-consider na mga factors, especially ang time value. Okay? Now, asa may ga-originate ang interest? And kisa may ga-invent kisa may very wise nga nakahuna-huna ana. So like taxes and like ang taxes, interest has existed from earliest recorded human history. Records reveal that nag-exist ni siya in Babylon in 2000 BC. In the earliest instances, where's my laser? Interest was paid in money for the use of grain or other commodities that were borrowed. So, it was also paid in the form of grain or other goods. Sa unang good kay Pwede ang commodities mismo ang imo ibayad or services. So many existing interest practices stem from early customs in the borrowing and repayment of grain and other crops. So ga-involve sa ilang mga panginambuhian sa una. History also reveals that the idea of interest became so well established in a firm of international bankers existed in 575 BC, with home offices in Babylon. The firm's income was derived from the high interest rates it charged for the use of its money for financing international trade. So, throughout ang early recorded history, typical annual rates of interest on loans of money were in neighborhood of 6% to 25%. Whoa! Although legally sanctioned rates as high as 40% were permitted in some instances, the charging of exorbitant interest rates on loan was termed as usury. Usury. U-S-U-R-Y. I thought it's usury. It's usury. It means kanang magpahulam kag money pero sobra kataas ang interest. Illegal na siya. Illegal na siya, guys. And ang prohibition of usury is found in the Bible. Wow. Diba na siya sa Bible? Exodus 22. Check out Exodus 22, 21 to 27. And so I checked. Tinuod yun na siya. Listen po, nag-delete tinuod. Napabutang dali. Let me just read it to you. If you lend money to any of my people with you who is poor, you shall not be like a money lender to him, and you shall not exact interest from him. If ever you take your neighbor's cloak in pledge, you shall return it to him before the sun goes down. Yeah. So, I think so. Murag na nakakuan gid siya nga. Dili ka too much maningil og kuan sa iya ha. Anyway, lastly, during the Middle Ages, interest taking on loans of money was generally outlawed on scriptural grounds. So, balik ka sa Bible. In 1536, kani siya, in the screen, in the slide, the Protestant theory of usury was established by John Calvin, and it refuted the notion that interest was unlawful. Okay. Consequently, interest taking again became viewed as an essential, importante siya, and legal part of doing business. Eventually, published interest tables become available to the public. So sa una di ay, na sila'y gi-establish nga table nga kani just ni siya, meaning tama ra na ma-just dili siya too much na. So na interest table nagi-publish nila nga available to the public. I think even now, if you will notice, kanang mga insurances, if you try to check ang mga insurances like life insurance, nakabutang na siya, naka-bracket na siya. This amount to this amount, 3%, So, magkadako ang amount, magkadako ang balik, ang interest na kuan. So, I think, we are using that now, like, we are using that these days. Especially these days, nga na-studyhan na gid siya, na-establish gid siya, maayo na improve siya, and many companies, insurance companies, mga stock market is really kanang is really studying that one. So yeah, so muna siya ang origins. That's how interest originated in Babylon, sa Bible, international, ginagamit as financing international trade, and si John Calvin, establish niya ang theory of usury. Usury is such a new term for me. Usury. It's illegal lending of money nga mangayo ka o dako nga interest in para makabayad siya. Actually mo nang reason na malugi ta ang mga Pinoy because so hard manggod kaayo na magkanang mag-avail of loans in legal institutions. That's why sa silingan na lang o sa kanang mga neighbor na you will mga kumare sa mga mama or mga usually kanang mga silingan or sa na no in a place nga pag murag know ni siya nga family na magpahulang og money, so they will lend you a certain amount of money that you need, and then in return you will like pay dagko ang interest nila. So that's why mabaon kag samot sa utang nimo, and kanang so hard na dayon to makabangon or makakuan because bisag kanang ang money could be spent na for the needs of the family, but yun noon ka sa interest, diba? Actually, naay gali term na interest ang bayaran. Murag ana ba? Murag diba, sa interest ka mamatay, dili tong amount of money na imong gihulam, but sa interest. Okay. So, yeah. So now, let's discuss simple interest. What's up kung simple interest? When the total interest earned or charged is linearly proportional lang to the initial amount of the loan or principal amount, P na siya sa kaning atong gamiton later. P, the interest rate and the number of interest periods for which the principal is committed, the interest and interest rate are said to be simple. So, mura ni ang formula. I is equal to P and I. Okay? Ang P, ang principal amount na imong gusto hulamon or gipahulam sa imo. Ang N is the number of interest period. So, pila ka years man siya. Mudagan, ang I is the interest rate per interest period. Okay, so the total amount we paid at the end of N interest periods is P plus I. Okay. So, i-total lang na nimo ang duha and makakuha ka og pila ang imong bayaran. Okay? Total na bayaran. After mahumana na period, after ang N. So, thus, if na kay $1,000 nga giloan, then 3 years nimo siya giloan at a simple interest of 10% per year. So, pila man ang interest? So, formula, I is equal to $1,000 ang principal interest nimo, 3 is the number of years, and times ang I nimo interest rate is 0.10 because that's 10%. So, you will have $300 ang interest na na-earn from 1,000. So, kung manghulam ka og $1,000, kung nag-loan ka og $1,000, ang mabayaran nimo na interest is $300. But that's not just it. Pila ang total amount na imong giutang? The total amount at the end of 3 years would be 1,300. So, ang total nimo na nabayaran tanan within 3 years kay 1,300. So, notice that the cumulative amount of interest owned is a linear function of time until the principal is repaid, usually not until the end of period N. Okay, so next, the importance of interest in your daily life. So, that importante ba ang interest? Not the interest ninyo sa inyong mga crush, ha? Or interest ninyo sa mga mobile games, but interest sa economic terms, okay? In 2005, total debt, credit cards, auto loans, home mortgages, etc., amounted to more than 100% of total disposable income for the average US household. Okay, so if your total disposable income is $50, How much interest can you expect to pay when the average interest rate on your debt is 12% per year? So comment down your answers in under this post. Okay, so I will wait for your answers in the comment section. Okay, so this is a simple interest example. And sige. Green Tree Financing lent an engineering company $1,000. So you have a principal amount or lent that is being lent or borrowed, which is $100,000. So it's $100,000 to retrofit an environmentally unfriendly building. The loan is 3 years at 10% per year, simple interest. How much money will the firm repay at the end of 3 years? So we simply have to substitute the values from the formula na atong na-discuss na earlier. So this is $100,000 times 3 times 0.10. Okay, so interest earned na 30,000. Okay. So how much money will the firm repay at the end of 3 years? So 30,000 plus ang 100,000 is $130,000. So this is your answer. Okay. Okay, for compound interest, whenever the interest charge for any interest period, let's say a year, is based on the remaining principal amount plus any accumulated interest charges from the beginning of that period, the interest is said to be compound. Pagka na ang gina-consider, the effect of compounding interest can be seen in the following table. So, if naakay ka ng $1,000 ng loan, i-loan nimo for 3 periods at an interest rate of 10% compounded each period, mo ni siya ang iyang labas. So 1,000 imong gikuan, gi-loan, 100 ang interest amount period computed for that period, and amount owed at end of period is 1,100. So gi-add lang siya ang duha. As you can see, a total of 1,331, yun siya sa last part. 1,331 would be due for repayment at the end of the third period. So if ang length of a period is 1 year, ang 1,331 at the end of 3 periods can be compared with 1,300 na given, anyway, wala siya na example nila. So, but the difference is due to the effect of compounding, which is essentially the calculation of interest on previously earned interest. Okay, the difference would be much greater for larger amounts of money. Ang ma-feel nimo ang kabug-aton sa higher interest rate if mas dagko nga amount sa money ang gina-loan or with higher interest rate and greater number of interest periods. So thus, ang simple interest, consider gyapon ang simple interest o time value of money but does not involve compounding of interest. Okay, so actually ang compound interest is much more common in practice than simple interest. Okay, and ang compound interest means interest on top of interest. Okay, so this is the end of topic 2, lecture 1. It's just really all about the time value of money in intro niya and all about simple and compound interest.